Hello and welcome back to Switch and Lever. As some of you may remember or have seen before, I've made a video about 2 years ago on how to build a Kalimba. I got a hurricane of grief from many who couldn't see themselves making this because they did not have the same machines that I use. Even though I've tackled that specific question in my frequently asked questions video, I figured I would make the simplest possible Kalimba, using nothing but hand tools. Instead of building a whole box from scratch, we're this time around starting out with an already existing box, like this cigar box. Regardless of what box you use, make sure it's not super thin. The sides of this cigar box are around 5mm thick, which should be plenty sufficient. If you're not a smoker, these are a mainstay of flea markets, so a little shopping around should land you with a suitable box for very little money. Now, depending on your box, your steps are going to be different. The aim is to make it airtight, save for a sound hole which we will cut out later. To that effect, I removed the lid entirely from the box to be able to work on it separately, before later reattaching it to the box. Using a hole saw or a Forstner bit or even a figure saw, make a sound hole in the lid. This is required to allow the Kalimba to have a bit of resonance and a place for the sound to actually escape from the box. Using a piece of scrap wood underneath will help prevent blowout when the hole saw breaks through. The trickiest thing to make by hand is the grounding bar, and again it could be made in a lot of ways. I carefully measured out and drilled 9 evenly spaced holes through the side of a piece of walnut, using a piece of wood to guide the drill so it goes through straight through the wood. If you have a drill press and a vise, this process becomes a lot easier, as you can drill through accurately without breaking a sweat. Since the first grounding bar I made had some blowout, as I didn't add any scrap wood to drill through to, I hope you can excuse me for using the drill press to make another one. You also need a way to securely attach this to the body of the Kalimba, and exert proper clamping pressure on the tines we will attach later. To that effect, we're also drilling 2 bigger holes on each side of the grounding bar to prepare for attaching bolts. Right now the grounding bar is in one piece, but we need it in 2 separate pieces. Using a thin saw like a Japanese pull saw, carefully saw apart the 2 pieces, trying to remain as centered as possible on the holes that we drilled before. This way you end up with about half of each hole on each piece. Place the grounding bar on the lid where it needs to go and transfer and drill through the holes. Using another piece of wood or MDF, transfer the holes again and drill them through to fit 2 T-nuts. I added a bit of super glue before hammering them in to make sure they could never go anywhere. Take this piece and glue it in on the inside of the lid with the T-nuts sticking downwards. Screw it in with a couple of bolts and washers to exert clamping pressure and keep it in the right position while the glue dries. In the meanwhile, we can look closer at the grounding bar. Clean up the surfaces with some sandpaper and make the grounding bar look a bit less rough. Screwing the pieces together as you work on them helps to give them the same fit and feel. Round the corners with a file and spend just as much or as little attention as you wish, making the grounding bar look and feel nice. Once the glue of the backer piece is dried, scrape away all possible stickers and varnish from the surfaces of the box where the lid and the box touch each other. Also do the same for the area under the grounding bar. If you don't, the glue that we're going to use simply won't bite properly. Glue the grounding bar in, and like before, use a couple of screws to clamp it down. Almost there now, time to seal up the box. Apply some glue to all the surfaces between the lid and the box, and simply use some painter's tape to hold everything together as it dries. Now here is maybe the biggest difference from the previous Kalimba build. We're not going to use metal for the tines, but instead a very cheap material you can easily get hold of almost anywhere: bamboo chopsticks. Fasten the top of the grounding bar lightly and fit the tines in between, and tighten up the grounding bar until all the tines are fastened securely. Unfortunately, here is where things went a little wrong. The grounding bar I made was a bit too thin and the wood deflected and bent rather than holding the chopsticks securely in place. This could be solved by making a thicker grounding bar or adding something to further stabilize the top part. I went the latter route and used some aluminum extrusion, cut, drilled and simply added on top of the grounding bar to keep it more rigid. It may not look as good as before, but it definitely does the job. From here on you can tune your Kalimba any way you want, as described in the previous video, or just tune it by ear and make it sound decent. Once you're happy with the tuning, just cut off the ends of the chopsticks and you're done. Head out on the streets and start busking for money. Those sweet Kalimba sounds. I hope this will settle the argument over making a Kalimba with simple tools. And if it doesn't, well, then I can't help you. If you haven't already, check out the previous Kalimba build or some of the other videos from Switch and Lever. And there's also that thing called Instagram where other stuff happens. Click and follow if that's your cup of tea. Until next time!